Well, good morning, everybody. Actually, we got some new faces out here today. The ones that are regulars will see that I'm not Eric. He's back there. They kind of volunteered me to do the connected RVing seminar since I'm a connected RVer. So we'll kind of go through the some of the basic stuff, like off-the-air television, and we'll talk about that, satellite, some internet, cellular, 4G stuff, because connected RVing has become more and more popular over the last couple of years, and then especially over the last year, we've had a lot of people working from their RVs and doing school from their RVs, so being connected to the world is a little bit more important while still being, out in the wilderness and enjoying yourself. So my name's Chad, for those of you who don't know me, and we'll go ahead and get started. So probably the most basic connected thing in an RV would be your television. Most modern RVs are built with an HD capable antenna already. There are a few different kinds, but probably the most common antenna that's been used on RVs for years, even before HD came along, was a crank-up antenna, where you have a crank on the inside of the camper and you have to crank the thing up, pull the sleeve down, rotate the antenna to get your signal. Since then, they've gone to more of an omnidirectional antenna that you don't have to aim, that gets a signal from 360 degrees. Most antennas, whether it's a crank up or whether it's an omnidirectional that's on your roof, on the inside of your camper, normally near your main television, although sometimes it'll be in the bedroom, on the wall there'll be a wall plate that's got a little black button or a switch that when you push that button, a little red or green light comes on. That's your antenna booster. If you're using your off-the-air antenna and you're going to be watching HD TV from your local channels, you got to make sure that's on. If not, you probably won't get any signal. But with your off-the-air television, it's important to remember that off-the-air TV signals don't really reach that far. You'll see antennas that claim, a 100-mile range or a 200-mile range. But if we can all think we're all old enough to remember analog TV before HD came along, well, with analog TV, if you were in a weak signal area, you would still get a signal, but it'd be fuzzy, right? You could still kind of see it. Well, with digital television, it's kind of an all or nothing signal. Either you can see a great picture or you've got no picture. And, trees in the way, hills, mountains, buildings, the position of your RV can make a huge difference in whether or not you get a signal from your HD antenna. So really, the typical range that people will be able to pick up TV signals from an antenna are maybe 20 or 30 miles from the tower. Beyond that, it starts to get real spotty. So since HD TV's come along, we've seen a lot of people switch to a satellite service, because satellite, you can get that just about anywhere. The folks that don't want to go to the satellite, that aren't having very much luck with their roof-mounted antenna on their RV, they do make external standalone TV antennas. Like something like this comes with a tripod that you can actually move it around, try to get it out of the way of your camper or buildings, that type of thing. But you still have to be within 20, 30, 40 miles of the broadcast tower to be able to get a signal. So satellite is probably the most reliable way of getting television in your camper. There are a couple of different ways to do that, but the easiest way is generally with a portable dome. Like this is the Tailgater. It's made by King, who makes a lot of satellite television equipment. This one particularly is for Dish Network, but they do make these for DirecTV as well. The domes on these can be mounted on the roof of your RV. They can be set just on the ground. You can get a tripod to put them on. And as long as you have a pretty clear view of the sky, normally the southern sky I think it is, you're probably going to get a satellite signal. If you have satellite at home already with Dish or DirecTV, you can add these on to your current plan, and it doesn't cost a whole lot. Up until last year, and I'll explain why I don't have satellite in my camper anymore in a minute because I'm kind of weird, but we had Dish Network at home at the time, and I was able to add the receiver in my camper for like $7 a month, and I got the same package that I had at home. You know, so the only cost that I had was the additional receiver and the dome for the camper, so it was great. We ended up cutting cable out or satellite out at home, so we did away with it in the camper, but it was great. I mean, we had 200 channels of HD on the road anywhere we went, never had a problem with it. The thing that I would recommend if you decide to go the satellite route is to not mount the dish to your camper, because the type of campsites that we like to have as RVers, satellite dishes don't like to be able to find a signal. We like a site that has some shade, right, with some trees over the top of it. And if you have your dish mounted permanently to the top of your camper, you may get your camper exactly where you want it, where your hoses reach. You know, you can plug into the power, you've got great shade, and there's a big tree in the way of exactly where that satellite needs to point. So what I did with mine was I just left it loose, got my camper where I wanted it, hooked up a 50-foot cable to my tailgater, and then just set it outside with a clear view of the sky. I've never had any issue with people trying to steal it, but they do make chains that you can chain this to a pole or a tree or a stake or something if you're worried about that. But the satellite was really nice for the rainy days and for the evenings when you're going to bed and you want to watch some TV. So they even, with the receivers for the satellite, like with the Dish one, it's a Wally receiver, basically just like you would get for your house, that has built-in apps. If you have internet in your camper, you can stream Netflix through it or YouTube or whatever. They have an add-on digital TV tuner that you can hook into it, where you can have your off-the-air TV and your satellite all coming through the same thing. So they're really, really a multi-function device. They make a DVR upgrade for it if you want to have a DVR in your camper. So you can have a TV experience like you have at home in your camper, and it's pretty easy. The setup on these is automatic. It finds the signal for you. It locks onto it. You don't have to aim it, with a compass and all that stuff like you used to with the dishes. So these have been a really nice upgrade for folks, especially the last couple of years. What we've seen the progression kind of go to, and it's happened for us, is we needed a way to have internet in our camper while we were traveling. We go camping to get away from, the hustle and bustle of normal life and to get away. But when it boils down to it, we do have, at home, if you have wireless security cameras, it'd be nice to be able to check those while you're in a campground, or monitor your thermostat at home, or if you need to do some work while on the road, or, we'd all love to believe that our kids enjoy the camping experience as much as we do, and would love to throw their tablets and laptops and cell phones and all that stuff in the drawer when we leave and not touch them for a weekend. But we all know that that's not really the case. The kids are still going to want their stuff, even if it's just at night. And so having internet on the road is becoming more and more popular for people, and that's what we transitioned to. So by adding internet access to your camper, it really allows you to do a lot of things. Number one, you can connect your cell phone to that Wi-Fi network if you don't have a really good cell signal. How many people have camped at New Harmony? A lot. Hardly any cell service there, right? So no internet, no cell phone, most of the time. If you have Wi-Fi calling on your phone, if you're connected to your camper Wi-Fi network and it has internet, you can make Wi-Fi calls on your cell phone. So that's a big deal with internet. Being able to keep track of stuff at home, if you've got a connected home, is important. working from home, a lot of people doing that, kids studying from home. You know, there are a lot of families that have kids in school that the schools have been doing e-learning for a while, and I know we use that as an excuse to just go camping during the week. You know, the kids would take their Chromebook from school, connect to the Wi-Fi in the camper, do their school work, we're out in the campground. You know, way better than being at home and trying to deal with, you know, kids e-learning. But the big thing for us was using our streaming services on the road in the campground. You know, we ended up cutting the cable and satellite out of our home a couple of years ago, and we just watched Netflix and Hulu and you know, YouTube, all the streaming services at home, and I wanted to be able to take that to the campground with us. You know, in the evenings, you know, it's nice to just sit back and watch TV, right? So, you know, at first we tried using the hotspot that most of us can do on our cell phones. You know, most cell phone plans nowadays, if you have unlimited data, have some type of hotspot plan, but most of those are limited. You know, some of them to 5 gigabytes for the month, some of them to 10 or 15. I think AT&T might be 20 now. But number one, that ties up your phone, uses a lot of battery power on your phone. If you hit that data limit, then you're out. But the big thing is, most of the campgrounds, like especially New Harmony, you don't get a signal on your phone to be able to use it anyway. So what they've done with the internet devices on campers is they've, you know, instead of having a really small antenna made for a cell phone that's normally going to be around a tower that doesn't need to pick up from very far away, a lot of the devices that they install on campers nowadays have multiple high-gain antennas that will pull a signal in even if your cell phone doesn't have a really good one. When we go to New Harmony, I don't really get data on my cell phone, and I sometimes get a cell phone signal enough to send a text message. But in almost every campsite that we've stayed in there, and I use that campground because most of us have been there, most of us have experienced the lack of service there, we have almost always had an internet connection with our internet device. Now, it hasn't been super fast because it's pulling from a tower that's like 6 miles away, but we have enough to be able to stream on a TV or to surf the internet on our phones or a laptop. And then everywhere else we've been, it's been super fast internet, you know, 50 megabits or 100 megabits or higher LTE speeds. So with the internet, you actually have a few different ways of looking at that. Probably the simplest setup for an internet hotspot in a camper is something that would be just a range extender, which is something like this. This is a router and a range extender that's built for RVs. It's made by King, same people that do the satellite and a lot of the internet stuff for campers. What a range extender does, or a router only, is it takes an existing internet signal and it repeats it out into a new network and makes it a little bit stronger in your camper. You would have to have internet in the campground in order for that to work. So, you know, most of your state parks don't have that. Most national parks don't have that. You'd have to go to like a KOA, you know, or a private park that has Wi-Fi in the park. The extender would take that network, you know, say campground Wi-Fi network, connect to that, and turn it into your own network. But you're still relying on their internet, their connection, and whether or not it's secure. That's probably the most basic way of getting internet. They do make systems like this King one that has an automatic antenna that mounts to the roof that actually finds that Wi-Fi network and locks onto it, and they have an incredible range. I mean, they are incredible. So that's for using somebody else's network and creating your own in your camper. I would say probably the most popular way of doing it is having your own network in your camper that you're in charge of that creates the internet for you. And that would be something like a Winegard 360 Plus. A lot of the new campers even are coming from the factory with that antenna built into them. Both of these campers here, the Cougar, I think this one, when you get done, if you step back and look at the top of them, you'll see a lot of them are white. A little white dome that looks like this that says Winegard 360 Plus on it. And what that is a combination antenna that will work for your HD TV and your AM FM radio stuff, like every other antenna does. But it also includes 4G LTE antennas, that's cell phone system antennas, that if you pair it with their gateway, which is something like this, this activates the 4G LTE antennas inside of that antenna. You set it up on your plan or one of theirs, and it actually creates an internet connection and a Wi-Fi hotspot inside your camper.
That's not just a repeater, that's its own cell phone device?
This is a modem and a router, yes.
But I mean, it's its own data device, it's not just a repeater, right?
Correct. Yeah, so this is similar to what I have in my camper. The new ones, you'll know if you have the prep for this, because inside your camper, near where that antenna is on the ceiling, there'll be a round plastic plate, kind of a really slight dome that says Winegard on it, and it has a little Wi-Fi symbol. If you have that, you have the correct antenna and the correct prep to basically plug and play one of these routers, one of these modems into your camper. So what this does, if you decide to go this route, and this can be installed in campers that don't have that prep. We can put that antenna on the top and wire this in. It's not a big deal. But they've designed this to be compatible with Verizon, with AT&T, and with T-Mobile. So if you have current service with any of those carriers, you can contact them directly. They normally recommend going to a corporately owned store to set it up. A lot of the resellers don't have a clue what you're talking about when you go in there and say, I want to connect my RV. It just goes right over top of them. So a corporately owned AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile store, they can set you up on a data-only plan for this device on your current plan that will then connect this to a cellular network just like a cell phone does, use the internet and the data available there, and create an internet connection in your camper. So it's they don't have them in 5G yet, but they are 4G LTE. So typically you can go, I think, up to 150 megabits per second speed on it, which generally is going to be way more than enough. At least, yeah. We've got a T-Mobile system that we use at a property that's in the middle of nowhere. That the closest cell tower is a T-Mobile tower that's 8 miles away. That hooks up to the LTE, gets a very weak signal, and we still manage to get 25 megabits there. And we can stream 3 TVs and have people on their cell phones at the same time. So, you know, the type of data throughput that you're generally going to use in a camper, 4G LTE for now anyway, will be fine. Now maybe if people start getting 8K TVs in their campers and are streaming 3 or 4 of them, you know, maybe that'll be Exactly, yeah. Yep, online gaming, whatever you want to do. Yes, sir. Okay. He had 2 questions for those that didn't hear. Number 1, he said, been talking about New Harmony, how does this work there? And number 2, what's the average cost for the plans? The system that we have in our camper is the previous generation to this. And at New Harmony, except for very rare occasions for a little while, maybe weather related, we've had a what I would consider a fair signal at New Harmony. You guys have been to our campouts, right? You know where we normally park ourselves down in that kind of low area. That's where we normally camp when we go there, even outside of the camp out. And typically we have enough of an internet signal there to be able to stream one TV and or use, you know, like a laptop computer on the internet. It's just, it's so weak there. I mean, it's miles and miles away to cell towers. And our system's on AT&T. So I don't know if somebody's on Verizon or T-Mobile, what the difference would be, but we're personally on AT&T.
So is that gonna be a problem, like if you were to the hills in Gatlinburg, things like that as well?
What kind of cell signal do you normally have down there?
I don't know, I haven't been there yet.
Haven't been there yet? The places that we've been in the Gatlinburg area, we've had a decent cell signal. I mean, I don't know if they, because of the hills over there, I don't know if they tend to put the towers on top of the hills, but the places that we've been have been pretty decent. So most places, I don't think you're going to have as much of an issue with coverage as you did in the past. I think a lot of your coverage areas, widespread coverage problems are going to be, you know, out west in the desert and places where you don't have any towers around, where you don't even have cell signal. You know, in our area, you know, we tend to have pretty good cell coverage. There's a few dead spots, but not terrible. To answer the cost of the plans, it varies based on the provider. AT&T just changed theirs, and I have to go into the store now and figure out what I need to do on mine to get mine renewed. They used to have they started out with the device I have with a really cheap unlimited plan, and then realized, oh, RVers actually use internet. We can't do that anymore. So they've changed it. So I've got to go into the store to figure it out. But for folks that don't want to pay every single month, you know, like you do on your cell phone for an internet service you probably won't use all year, most of those providers do offer some type of pay-as-you-go plan. Even Winegard themselves offer data plans for it for people that don't have T-Mobile, Verizon, or AT&T currently, that still want to be a part of it. They have their own data plans that they offer. And theirs are just pay-as-you-go. And pay-as-you-go tends to be a little bit more expensive. But like they've got a 10 gigabyte plan for $59. That's a pay-as-you-go. Once you use up the 10 gigs, you can pay for additional data. Then if you don't need any for the next 2 months, you don't pay for anything. I've been tracking, since I knew we were going to be doing this seminar, I started tracking, since we haven't been camping lately, I've been tracking our 4G Sprint service that we use at our rural place. And over the course of a month, and we typically only go there on weekends, but we'll have 2 or 3 TVs streaming Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff, and my daughter watches that all night long and leaves it streaming with Pandora and whatever else going, and then everything she does on her phone, and I'll have my laptop going. Over the course of a month, with all of those people doing all of that stuff, 10, 12, I'd say probably 14 days out of the month, 12 or 14 days, we average 25 to 40 gigabytes, but that's with teenagers. So if you plan on having heavy usage, I would get with your cell phone provider and add it as a data device. That way you could do a 50 gigabyte plan or a 100 gigabyte plan if you need it. I believe T-Mobile does an unlimited plan still for this type of device. They do?
Yeah, they kept trying to sell it to me before I needed it.
Okay, good. Now you need it, you need to go buy it. Yeah. Yeah, these things are great. We've transitioned from, I mean, we don't even crank our antenna up on the roof anymore. I don't mess with the satellite stuff really anymore. We've gone to the internet thing in our camper because it's just so convenient. That's what we're used to. It basically, you know, if you've got internet and Wi-Fi at home, it's the same experience that you get while you're on the road. You know, it's once you set it up, when you go out to your camper, it's always the same Wi-Fi network. You don't have to worry about figuring out what the Wi-Fi is, where you're going. It's using your own cell signal. It's super easy. It's just there. It does work nicely too. We've used ours at home. If we've had a storm and it's knocked out electricity at the house, or if there's an ice storm, the snow, that type of thing, people lose power. With that, it runs off of the 12 volt in the camper, so we can fire it up and sit out in the driveway with the camper and have internet, or watch TV, that type of thing. So it's worked for us in numerous ways. Do you have a question, Jim?
Can you still boost the signal like you do other things?
Like use an existing Wi-Fi network and boost it?
Well, with the Winegard,
The Winegard will do,
you have a weak signal, is there a way to boost it?
it will take, for the TV, it will work with a boost, it will do a booster on the TV signal. Just the nature of the type of antennas that are in it for the 4G, the cell phone signal for the internet, it will typically get an extra bar or two over what your phones do. So you'll always have a better signal on that than you will on your cell phone. So, but most modern, that goes back to the Wi-Fi calling thing. Most modern cell phones have Wi-Fi calling enabled by default. If you're on a Wi-Fi network, I think it's Android and Apple's both do it. If you're connected to a Wi-Fi network, it actually will send the call over Wi-Fi instead of over the cell signal, because it's going to be a little bit stronger. So if you have that capability and you're hooked to your camper Wi-Fi, you're going to have a better signal, so to speak, for making phone calls or receiving phone calls. So that's been handy for us on the road in places where our cell phones barely work. As long as we're on the Wi-Fi and we do the Wi-Fi calling, people can still call in, we can call out, even without a cell signal, as long as this is getting a cell signal.
You can run something like that even while you're driving, too.
Exactly, yeah, and we do. Yeah, well, because we've got a motorhome, so we'll have a kid sitting in the back watching TV while we're driving, keeps them quiet too, it's perfect. Yes, sir?
Is there an AT&T corporate store here in Everett?
There are quite a few, yeah. There's the one that's at Burkhart and near Virginia. That's a corporate store. There's one on North Green River, south of Lynch. If you do a search for AT&T stores, most of the ones that aren't corporate will say authorized reseller, so just avoid those.
I had that Winegard installed, and I went there, and they were more than happy to sell me a plan. I spent 22 hours talking to AT&T, never got it connected. And I went back to the store, and I did the one at Burkhart and Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
and they told me they didn't have a clue what to do.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle since it's such a relatively new thing, finding employees that know what they're talking about. And that's been like 3 years since I installed mine, and there was hardly anybody doing it at that point. And I had a couple hours on the phone explaining to people that, yes, I really actually did have this device that has a plan that they sold me, and I need to connect it. The typical experience lately that I've been hearing isn't nearly that bad. If you call AT&T, ask for somebody that deals with the Data Connect pass. Data Connect is the plan that they generally use for those devices, and those people typically know exactly what you're talking about. The people that deal with cell phones look at you with a blank stare. Typically, it's like, so it's a hotspot? Well, not really, but yeah. So yeah, the Data Connect is the key word for AT&T if you do deal with them. Right. So yeah, once they're hooked up, it's easy. But yeah, they use a SIM card just like any other device. So once you get the SIM card and the data plan, it's plug and play. Any other? Trying to think if I've missed anything on the internet stuff. Any other questions on internet or Wi-Fi or anything like that in campers before we move on? The Winegard, your camper probably has the 360 plus on it. We'll have to check. So if all you need is the router, the modem router device, 286. and they're generally a pretty easy install. A lot of folks will wire them in with a switch, which they include, so you can turn it off, so it's not on all the time, draining the battery. Yeah, it's just a couple of wire connections on the back for the antenna, power, and a switch, and you're good to go. And we can do it here too for. Flick the switch. Yep. Okay, guys, go play outside. Which we all know is hard to do nowadays. But so yeah, the internet has really become a big thing lately, just because of the way our lives are. You know, we all like to camp to get away from stuff, but there's still that little part of us that still wants to be connected. You know, we don't want to be that isolated. So the internet thing's been great for that. A couple other minor things that I think fall into the connected RV experience. Wireless rear vision cameras. I think most people nowadays, I think we're seeing like 80% of people who buy a camper before we can even suggest it to them say, now you guys sell those cameras, right? I mean, these things are lifesavers. Most of the new campers nowadays are prepped for them, plug and play. So you have an observation system in the back or a backup camera, depending on the system. You know, so I think that goes into the connected RVing experience. Little things that campers have nowadays, or that you can get for them. Wireless remote entry is actually a thing for campers now. It replaces the door locks on the outside of your camper. You still have a key, but you also have a keypad and a wireless fob like you have with your car. So that's actually a thing now. I didn't know that, and I work in the industry, and I saw that. I'm like, ooh, that's cool. So now I have to get one. But one of the coolest things that I've seen lately is something that has been installed on campers here recently, and it's called Global Connect. And I'm actually going to pull Brian in for this. He's one of our sales consultants here, and he keeps the app on his phone and goes through it every day with people more than I do. So, but basically what it is smart home technology in your camper that you can use from anywhere. It's really, really cool. So I'll let him explain that to you. Put that on. There you go.
So the Global Connect is touchscreen in the cooler, 236 feet with the fifth wheel. Basically what it allows you to do is awnings. Let me pull it up here.
Put this on right about your second mic for the stream.
So on my phone, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it has a spot where I can check my tanks. I can turn my tank heaters on, voltage, water, lights, slides, and awnings. So with just a touch of, if you notice the awning lights right there, now this is done through Bluetooth. I can control the awnings and the slides. How many times you go somewhere and, you know, especially in the showroom when I'm running out awnings and slides, I can't see it. So it's nice to kind of step out and actually see what I'm doing. The other thing is with the Global Connect, if anybody has pets, if you have the air condition and it's, you know, it's warm, I can go on here and look at, I can look and see the temperature inside the camper and change it accordingly. So that's really all I have about that.
Yeah, you just need to work away from Bluetooth connectivity. You do have to have an internet connection to that device in your camper, but you know, those are prepped with that Winegard system. So you do have the capability of hooking them to the internet and having kind of a from anywhere control of your camper, like he was talking about. You can monitor the temperature inside if you've got pets, and you leave and it's, you know, cool outside, and during the day it gets really hot and you've got to turn the air conditioner on. You can get on your cell phone, turn the air conditioner on in the camper, make sure the pet's okay, run your awning in if the weather's getting bad. So, you know, campers are kind of following the trends of homes, albeit a little bit slower, where you know, you can have this control over your camper from just about anywhere. Even if you don't have the internet connection, just having the capability locally at the camper through Bluetooth to control that stuff's pretty cool. You know, being able to stay in your theater seating and adjust the temperature, or roll your awning in because it's starting to storm, or, you know, turn the lights off inside or outside. It's pretty neat. Before we wrap up this particular seminar, do we have any other questions about anything we talked about, or anything that I might have forgotten to talk about?
I have a slide that I thought was I think it's called a Wi-Fi Ranger, or that's basically like an access point. What else does that mean?
The Wi-Fi Rangers, if I remember right, because we had looked into those a few years ago, and I believe the Wi-Fi Ranger is just a repeater. So in order for that to work, wherever you're staying has to have a Wi-Fi network already. So there should be a login of some type to log into that Wi-Fi Ranger, hook it to the park Wi-Fi, and then it will extend it into your camper a little bit more. So it's just...
I never quite understood that, because if the park has Wi-Fi, why don't I just put Wi-Fi?
Right. If you're in a park that has really good Wi-Fi, you won't need it. There are some parks where they kind of charge a premium for sites that are closer to their Wi-Fi network, and they'll say, these sites over here are out of range of our Wi-Fi. With the Wi-Fi Ranger type of thing, or one of these that'll do a repeater, that, or one of these, you might actually be able to pull that signal in from one of those other sites. So that's... I don't believe the Wi-Fi Rangers have that capability, no. But if you've got the Wi-Fi Ranger in there, you probably already have power going to that place in your roof, so it wouldn't be a terribly difficult install to take that off and then replace it with, you know, like the 360 Plus that would do the LTE and the Wi-Fi repeating and TV and everything. So I think you have one?
What kind of cost are we looking at with the King Tailgater?
The tailgaters, what are those, about 300 or about 400 bucks, aren't they now? Chris is going to look for us real quick. The receivers are, looks like about $91. If you have an extra receiver at home, if you already have the service, you can use that. So you don't necessarily have to buy one if you have an extra one at home.
Will not work with that. You have to have a certain type of the Wally. They all won't work.
Ah, okay. He said on the new ones, there's certain receivers that will work and certain ones that won't. All right, 308 for Dish Network. All right, and the King is for direct. Okay. Yeah, they have a little bit different systems between the two of them, so Dish is a little bit less expensive. So.
Plus, to the Dish network, is you can pay for it monthly.
Right.
So if you want to pay for 3 months, you pay for 3 months. If you pay for 1 month, you pay for 1 month. It's not like having a subscription.
Right. Yeah, if anybody didn't hear what he said, with Dish, they do a pay-as-you-go. So if you're only going to use it in the spring, summer, and fall, you can just pay those months that you're going to use it and not pay over the winter time when you're not. So, being less expensive for the equipment, you also probably save some money on Dish using it for your normal service. Any other questions?
The keyless lock, does that also work for your cell phone?
This particular one does not. It's just a handheld wireless remote. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one is a standalone antenna. So you could, they recommend for best signal to keep the length of cable that you're using as short as possible. So if you're able to run it through a window or something directly to your TV, you're probably going to get a better signal. If your camper has a satellite or the satellite hookup probably be the best on the outside because it's a direct run from out there into your TV. you could probably use it with that too, for the standalone TV antenna. This has a built-in booster, so you wouldn't want to run it through, that's why you wouldn't run it through your cable line, because then it would be cutting through the booster and it'd be kind of an odd deal. So yeah, for just a standalone antenna like that, you'd want to, if you could run it directly, that's how you'd want to do it. If your camper already has an antenna on the roof, that's, you know, maybe an older one that doesn't work real well with the new HD stuff, and you already have a booster inside, you'll probably be better off going to, do I have one up here? I don't. They have a similar antenna to this that replaces the antenna that you already have on the roof. So you could use your existing booster, all your existing cabling, and you don't have to mess with setting up a standalone antenna. They also do make, if you've got the crank-up antenna, they make a new head for that, which is this, that replaces the old wing with a newer amplified antenna that'll work too. And those are a real easy install, not terribly expensive. Anybody else? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. If anybody does think of anything, any other questions, feel free to come on up and ask. Either of us can help you out. The guys in parts, I believe, are here too. This is also their domain, so if you guys have any questions or want to know about pricing or install or anything, they can help you back there with that too. So, but appreciate you guys all coming.